Okay, so this video, just if you are, just to repeat, in case you're watching it online, it is the introduction to the very basics of Cinema4d and V-Ray. I'll repeat this again so that if you're watching this, you're gonna hear it. We are going to just show the functionalities of Cinema4d and V-Ray for you to create a basic render. There's not going to be anything about modeling. There's not going to be anything in how you work with Cinema4d meshes and so on and so forth. This is just so that you can bring your own model and start rendering. So, as I've already mentioned in the past, doing other rendering courses, and I think that almost everybody in this class has already done a rendering course with me, right? Good. So, when we need to render something, there are three elements that we need. What are these three elements? Good. Good. Very good. So, we need an object, or I like to call it a model, a light source, and a camera. Okay? You have to think that this software basically is a camera. Now, you're looking around and you don't see anything. Why? Because we don't have these elements inside. Now, how do we navigate Cinema4d? Cinema4d is super simple to navigate. All you need is one button on the keyboard and 3 buttons on the mouse. Click and hold Alt on the keyboard and click and hold the left mouse button on your mouse. Now you're panning. Click Alt and hold and click the right mouse button. You're zooming. Click the marvel which is 3D. Click Alt and the middle mouse button and you pan. Very good, that's the type of reaction I need. Now, there are some alternate ways to do the same thing. If you click 1 and then the left mouse button, you pan. If you click 2 and the left mouse button, you zoom. If you click 3 and the left mouse button, you orbit. Why do we have this option? Because very often digital artists, they don't work with the mouse, they work with the pen tablet. So the pen tablet only has one click, so you need 3 mouse buttons to move around. There is another way still for you to orbit and look around. You see these 3 buttons up here? Actually there are 4. I will explain you what the 4th button is. With one you can pan, with another one you can zoom, and with the 3rd one you can rotate. The 4th one will split the views in such a way that you can have an overview of top, bottom, back, and so on. Now, I'm just gonna drop a little geometry. Don't worry about what I'm doing because it's not interesting for you, so that you see in which direction we're looking. So I drop the geometry. I'll make it editable. I scale it a little bit. I extrude it so that you have an idea of where I'm looking at. Very good. So this is now my geometry. I'm in 3D. If I click with the middle mouse button once, my view splits into 4 views. If I hover with my mouse into that view and click again the middle mouse button, that view magnifies. So you see the navigation is so much better. So let's do that. So say that I have a building. This is my building. There we go, this is my building. And say that I want to go and work on the facade. I just simply go to right view up here and I'm working on the facade. Now, let's do a couple of, let's do a little setback And let's take a look at the different display modes which are available to us in terms of like view management. Okay? Now if you go to the display option, you have different shading possibilities. The go-out shading that you see up here with the lines and not, these are basically modes that allow you to see the lights in your viewport. Say that I drop a light like this one. Now what you see, it's your object is black. Why? Because the light is displayed. You see? It's pretty cool actually. If we have lights in our viewport, but we don't want to have this effect because this effect might not help you to read, we can simply switch from go-out shading to quick shading. Now I'll show you the difference between the lines and not. This one just shows the geometry. This one shows the lines as well of the geometry. I usually work 90% of my time with this mode. Unless I'm doing some interior shots, then what I do, I change to constant shading lines. That means that the geometry is flat, but I still see the lights. Don't worry about it for now, everything is being recorded as we speak, so it will be available for you online to go and check it out. So to recap, how do we navigate a scene? My favorite way is to work with Alt, left button, right button, middle button. It is important that at this stage you have a good mouse and not one of those stupid looking mouses that are only designed and they don't even have a wheel on top. Okay? Good. So let me just delete everything for now. Actually no, let's leave it here. And let's talk about the tasks that you might have to do when importing your model and render it. Okay? So first of all, one thing that it's going to save your life quite a bit is this hierarchy organizer. If you create, say, a lot of elements in Rhino, all the elements that you have in your viewport, they will be listed here. Okay? Now it's important to understand this because this is called the hierarchy, meaning that the position of these elements actually matters. Why? Because we can make objects children of other objects. That will help you carrying the attributes of an object over. What do we mean by that? Say that I have a bunch of buildings, just like this. And what we want to do is to give them all the same material. What I can do, I can use the rectangular selection. I can select everything, Alt G, and I will make a group. You see now this group is up here and it's hiding everything that before was listed. All I have to do is click on plus and my hierarchy is here. Now if I wanted to put this material on every single object, I would have to go to Create, Shader, V-Ray, Advanced Material, and then say, okay, either select all the objects and then drop the material on one and automatically all the objects have the material, or I go here, this is where the material is. I'll show you this in a bit. Simply go to the null, drag and drop this into the null, and it's done. All the attributes of this null, they are carried to the kit. Say that now I have one single object that I still want to have its own material. I create a new material. Say I change the colors of this material. Make it something like this. I can simply click that material, that object. It's right there. Drag and drop. and now I have one object with a different material. So this automatically overrides this. Okay? It's super simple. All you have to do is work with it, and you're gonna realize how good this is. Now, materials are usually applied this way. In the material tab, you also manipulate the texturing of the V-Ray material. What do we mean by that? Do you remember in Rhino I showed you how to make the sides of the floor correctly? You remember? With the planking and stuff? You can do the same, of course, in Cinema. Now say that I have a material like a wood plank. Now I'm going to choose any wood plank, so don't judge the way I create the material, just look at it to understand what I'm doing. So view image, I'll save this into my project folder. Now what I do, I create a brand new material. Now the advantage of working with V-Ray for Cinema4d instead of Rhino is that most of the time you're only going to use this V-Ray advanced material. So the normal material that you do, it's actually in Rhino, sorry, it's actually replaced by the V-Ray advanced material, and you're gonna have all the physical aspects of it available in one material, which is fantastic. So let's create a brand new material. We call it wood. Double click on the material. This thing opens up. Now in the diffuse layer, we are going to go to texture map. As you can see, this is the diffuse color, just like in Rhino. You remember? Diffuse. Then you have diffuse layer transparency. So we just say diffuse. Texture map. Just like in V-Ray for Rhino, we need to put a bitmap, but not a Cinema bitmap, but rather a V-Ray bitmap. Where is this? Go down here, V-Ray, V-Ray shader. Now the V-Ray shader, it's much more powerful because it replaces all the other second guessing that you might have. Click here. Now it's important that you click onto this picture. Here you have the slot for the picture that you want to use. In this case, it's our wood. Done. So now you have the material inside your element. You remember, inside your shader. You remember in V-Ray I showed you how to create the reflections, how to create the bump. All of these things you have to go and look for them. Of course I was using an older version of V-Ray, the newest one. It's a little bit better, but still I find that the Cinema4d and V-Ray layout for the materials is the best one ever. Like, I like it even more than the 3ds Max or Maya. How do we create a reflection? As I told you, to create the reflection you need the same material that you use for the diffuse, but you need to blend it with white, right? Now pay attention, because there are a lot of sliders, but you realize very quickly that you're only moving the same one over and over. How do we create a specular layer? We drag this material inside the specular layer and then back inside the texture mapping. Now be careful, because 90% of you impatient little bitches will write me saying, "Nah, I did that, but it doesn't work." And then you're dragging it down there. I love you guys, but you gotta be patient and you gotta pay attention. Okay? So I don't drag it down there, but I drag it up here in the specular color. Then what I do, in the same slot of the material itself, I say mix strength 70% with white. And all of a sudden you'll see that some reflections start to come out. The only thing is that, as already discussed, we need to change the IOR of this material, because wood, it's an organic material. So what do? We say Fresnel, instead of 1.6, 3. And this is beautiful because I don't have to go and look for the IOR. It's right there in front of me. So you'll see the material will... sorry, I keep saying this, but I didn't switch it on. The material now has a reflection. Take a look. Is it visible on the beamer? You see there is a reflection. But the problem is that the reflection is now too strong. Instead of changing the IOR, what we want to do is change the reflectance at 90 degrees. This gives us how strong the reflection is. So let's bring this to something like, say, 65%. Okay. And let's lower the reflection glossiness to something like say 70%. Look how more realistic now the wood is. Let's now look at the bump. We don't care for it now. The material now is set up with few clicks. It's super simple. What do we do now? We select the object that we want to texture. We drop the material on it. And as you can see, this is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because I modified it. So what do we want to do? We want to change the type of texturing that we're using. How do we do this? Super simple. Click on the material itself. Here we have the projection tab. In the projection tab, we simply say cubic. What is happening here? I'll show you. Click both the texture and the object and go to this icon down here. This is the texturing icon. Now this is the projection of our material. You see? That means that the geometry is projecting in that direction and in that direction. You see that the texture is now looking in that direction and in that direction. Now we can change this, but before changing this, we need to understand the difference between the axis of the object itself and the axis of the position in the world space. Don't overthink. This is basically the only task that you have to do when texturing. Instead of moving the texture like this, so the texture itself, go here to the enable axis, and now you can move the widget itself. You can not only move it, but you can even rotate it. Now the rotation, the shortcuts for the moving, for the scaling and the rotation are E, you can see it up here, E, T for the scaling, and R for the rotation. Super simple. So say now I wanna scale this, because you see it's a little bit too small. T, the axis is always selected. Scale. You see? And now I can get it to work the way it's supposed to. Most of the time, if you're working on an architectural project, you are going to use the cubic projection all the time. Okay? It's really seldom that you are going to use something else, because for everything else you're probably going to be fine with the UV, say a freeform surface or something. Okay? Also because the freeform surface will unlikely be something like wood, or will be more of a plastic or a metal, and the metal basically reacts a little bit different, but it's the same concept. Okay? So now we have created a very basic wood material. Let's create a metal. How do we create a metal? Just like in Rhino and V-Ray, we go to Create, Shader, V-Ray Advanced Material. What did we say about metal? What is the main component of metal? Reflection. Okay. So, if I hope I make this fun for you. Otherwise, you're gonna fall asleep, just like I'm falling asleep. So, the reflection, it's the most important component of the material. That means that what we wanna do, we wanna change the diffuse to black, and please make sure to change it into diffuse color and not the layer transparency. These to black, and the specular layer, the Fresnel IOR of metal, I already told you, it's about 22. Now, the only problem that you are going to have is that this is now a mirror. This is how you do a mirror. A metal is never super polished. It always has a little bit of glossiness unpolished. How do we do this? Reflection glossiness. We bring this down to about 90%. I open this in the window for you to see. This looks really good. Now, you see the reason why I want you to work with Cinema and not with Rhino. Cinema has controllers which are there, you see them, you try. If you make a mistake, you make a brand new material, you don't care. Now, say that you're importing something from Rhino and you want to texture it, or you want to change the material using V-Ray, Cinema4d and V-Ray. How do we do this? Say, if I want to replace completely this material, this rosa, with a black, how do we do this? First of all, let me create the black. So what now, to create a black, okay? I go inside my diffuse layer. What do I have to do to create a black? Just say it. Foya. I drag this towards the black, right? Now, as I already mentioned in past workshops that we did together, black never really exists at 100%. So if you want a black, don't go more than 15%. Same thing with white. If you want a white, don't go more than, say, 85. Actually, 80 it's even better. So to make a black, we go to something like 15%. And this is already dark. Alright? So now I have a black. I don't have a reflection, but say that I want to have a little bit of plastic instead of a matte black. What do? Switch on the specular layer. The Fresnel of plastic, it's about 2. And the highlight glossiness, it's about 75%. Look at this. Just with a few clicks, now we have a realistic plastic. It's super simple. Now, we have the black here. How do we replace completely this pink? There is a shortcut. This is a very important one. With Alt clicked, I can simply drag and drop these onto my material. And now the rosa is gone, and I've replaced it with a black. Okay? Good. So now we have covered everything which we need to know about the basic materials. All the other things that you want to do, you can experiment yourself. Actually, maybe one thing that we can do is for you to give it a go and try it by yourself. But of course, you gotta watch this video first over and over to kind of have an understanding of how this works. But let's set the camera and the light, because these are super simple. So first of all, in this case, I don't have it modeled from Rhino, so I'm just gonna drop a plane. And I'm gonna make this plane very, very big. and I'm gonna find a position that it's for me okay to render, and I'm gonna place a camera. How do I place a camera in Cinema4d? There is this little camera button up here. All I have to do is click it once. Now the camera is set, but I'm not looking inside the camera. Look at this. If I now navigate away, my camera is right there. You see, it looks like a little camera. It's there, it's positioned, but I'm not inside it. How do I look towards my object through my camera? All I have to do is go up here, click inside my camera, and now I'm in it. Now the problem is that very often what people do, they navigate in camera mode. What happens? They lose the angle where they were looking. You see, because now it's gone. If you do this by mistake and you catch it, what you can do is go to camera, view, undo view. View, undo view, and now you're back. So a good practice, as soon as you decide the camera, is to right click, Cinema4d tags, protection tag. Now I cannot do anything anymore. You see, my camera is locked. I can still change the parameters of my camera, such as say the angle, focal length 20, but my position is locked. I can still change the film offset, but my position is locked. Okay? This is very important to understand. Now I set the camera, but is this a V-Ray camera? No. So right click, V-Ray bridge, V-Ray physical camera. Boom. Now it's a V-Ray camera. Let's do the same with the sunlight. Now bear in mind that I'm using V-Ray 1.9. There is a newer version of V-Ray, which I don't know why we haven't installed yet, because we have it. The software actually that we should use, it's 3.4, and we have it, and hopefully I can get them to install it. But all these tags that you see here, they're already automated. So you will see it's so simple to get started with V-Ray for the version 3.4. Here with this version we have to do a little bit of stuff by hand, but it's not a big deal because it's super simple. Now to make a sunlight it's basically an infinite light with the direction. Now to control this direction, I need to tell the light to have a target. Super simple. How do we do this? Lights, infinite light. Now my infinite light is anywhere in my viewport, but it's straight, you see? If I deselect it, it's right there. It's, you know, this element here with a little file. And that's it. So what do we want to do now? We want to tell the light, right click, Cinema4d, target. Now we can simply go to the object tabs, click on null. This null will be on the 0 position. Click on the target again, drag and drop the null inside the target, and now my light is looking at the target. All we need to do now is to find the position of the light that we like the most. So since our camera is looking in that direction, let me kind of like have a light in this direction so that we see everything. Also maybe the position of the sun it's a little bit too low. Let's go a little bit higher. So the light is set, but is this a V-Ray light? No. It's not a V-Ray light. What we need to do is right click, V-Ray bridge, V-Ray light. Now, the advantage of working with the V-Ray tag for the V-Ray light is that V-Ray automatically understands that this is a sun. So you see, if I click on the tab here on the little tag, I get the options for the sun. one thing that we need to do is saying that the shadows need to be there. The subdivisions, you remember, we talked about it also in V-Ray. 80 for the shadow subdivisions, photon subdivision 1000. Now, just like in V-Ray, the sunlight size multiplier controls how sharp our shadows are. So now I have the camera, I have the light. Let's set V-Ray. Click on the render settings, which are these ones, this button up here, and we change from standard render to V-Ray bridge. Click on V-Ray bridge. Indirect illumination, just like in V-Ray for Rhino. GI on. Now, you remember how I made you change all the settings by hand? We don't have to do this. We simply have to go to Load GI Presets, Stefan, Universal, Preset Stefan Big Size. You might ask, why is this called Stefan? Stefan is the owner of the company that made the software, and he makes these presets himself. All other software don't come out with such presets. Okay? So it's actually a favor that he's doing us, because we don't have to do anything else. Let's close V-Ray. Let's click on Render. And just like this, we have a rendering. Now, if I'm looking at my rendering, the questions that I might have are, how can I change the proportion of my picture? Like in before, when I rendered the skyscraper, how do I change this? It's very simple. Let's go back to our render settings. In output, I have the possibility to say, I want the picture 1920 by 1080, which is the normal HD standard. What do we want to do then? Lock the ratio. Why? Because if we click on lock the ratio and we change the size of the picture, say to 1500 to test, the proportion will stay the same. Let's take a look. Now the proportion of my picture has changed. Look, this is what I had before, this is what I have now. Now the question that you might have is, okay, the shadows, they look awesome. How can I make them soft? Just like in V-Ray for Rhino, what was the parameter that we were changing to make the shadow soft? The size multiplier. So let's click on the tag. Let's go down to size multiplier and let's change this to 10. Let's click on render again. Let's make a quick comparison. This is what we had before, super tight shadows. This is what we have now. Okay? And this is actually everything that I needed you to check out. Okay? I'm gonna stop the video. We'll take a short break. I'll upload this and then we'll have a discussion on how we're gonna manage from now on the workflow, okay? Because I need you to do some work, otherwise you're never gonna learn this stuff, okay? Tutorial alone, it's not gonna cut it. Okay, so I'm gonna upload this. I will see you in 10 minutes.